Oh, the sheer thrill of it all. There I was, standing on the sun-drenched banks of the Nile in Luxor. The air was thick with a kind of ancient magic, darlings, a feeling that something truly wondrous was about to begin. Before me floated the Viking Ra, a ship that looked less like a vessel and more like a floating palace from a forgotten era. It was crisp, white, and so elegant against the deep blue of the river. The staff greeted us with such warmth, their smiles as bright as the Egyptian sun. They handed us cool, fragrant towels and a lovely hibiscus drink called karkade. It was a simply marvelous start to what I knew would be an unforgettable adventure. My heart was doing a little flutter kick of excitement as I stepped aboard. The interiors were just as splendid as the outside promised. Polished wood, cool marble, and beautiful Egyptian art everywhere you looked. It felt so calm and inviting, a perfect sanctuary after the delightful chaos of arrival. My cabin was a dream, with a balcony that opened right onto the river. I could already imagine myself sitting there with a cup of tea, just watching the world drift by. The ship felt steady and strong beneath my feet, a reliable new friend ready to carry me through the mysteries of this ancient land. It was all so terribly, terribly exciting. From my balcony, the Nile was a living, breathing entity. It wasn't just a river, it was a story unfolding right before my eyes. Feluccas, those traditional wooden sailing boats, glided past with their tall white sails billowing in the gentle breeze. On the banks, children waved and laughed, their voices carrying across the water like little bells. The sounds of the city, the distant call to prayer, the gentle hum of life, all blended into a beautiful symphony. I felt as though I had stepped not just into a different country, but into a different time altogether. It was all so romantic and utterly captivating. As evening fell, the ship began to hum with a gentle energy. Fellow passengers, all with the same look of happy anticipation, gathered on the sun deck. We introduced ourselves, sharing stories of where we came from and what we hoped to see. There was such a lovely, friendly atmosphere from the very beginning. We were all strangers, yet we were united by this shared dream of sailing the Nile. That first night, as the ship gently pulled away from the dock, I stood on my balcony and watched the lights of Luxor fade into the darkness. A whole new world was waiting for me just around the river bend. Our first full day was a whirlwind of pure astonishment. We woke to the gentle rocking of the ship and the soft morning light filtering through the curtains. After a delicious breakfast, honestly, the pastries were divine, we set off for our first adventure. Our guide, a wonderful man named Ahmed with a twinkle in his eye, led us to the Temple of Dendera. Oh, it was simply breathtaking. The sheer scale of it was hard to comprehend. The ceilings were painted a deep celestial blue, covered in stars and intricate carvings of gods and goddesses. It felt like stepping into a giant stone storybook. Ahmed was a master storyteller. He didn't just give us facts and dates. He brought the temple to life. He pointed to a carving of Cleopatra and her son Caesarion, and for a moment you could almost hear their whispers echoing through the grand halls. He explained how the ancient Egyptians saw the universe and their place within it. It was fascinating to learn how they built these magnificent structures with such precision, all aligned with the stars. I found myself just standing in the middle of the great hypostyle hall, head tilted back, completely lost in the beauty of it all. It was more magnificent than any picture could ever capture. After our visit, we returned to the ship for a lovely lunch. It was so civilized, darlings. To be exploring these rugged, ancient sites in the morning, and then to be back in the cool comfort of the Viking Ra in the afternoon, was the perfect balance. We sailed on, and the landscape began to change. The lush green banks, dotted with palm trees and sugarcane fields, stretched out on either side. We saw farmers working their land with donkeys, using methods that have probably not changed for thousands of years. It was a timeless scene, a beautiful, moving painting that was constantly shifting. That evening, as the sun began to dip low in the sky, it cast a golden glow over everything. The water turned to liquid gold, and the air grew soft and warm. I sat on the sun deck with some of my new friends, sipping a cool drink and just watching the world go by. We talked about what we had seen, our voices filled with awe. There was a sense of shared wonder among us, a feeling that we were all part of something truly special. The first day had set the bar so incredibly high, and I couldn't wait to see what other secrets the Nile had in store for us. Life on the Viking Ra was an absolute delight. a little bubble of comfort and joy floating down the Nile. The ship itself was a masterpiece of design, spacious and airy, yet it felt wonderfully intimate. There were so many lovely little nooks where you could sit with a book or simply gaze out at the river. The sun deck was a favorite spot for many of us. With its comfortable loungers and a sparkling plunge pool, it was the perfect place to relax after a morning of exploring dusty temples. The staff were the heart of the ship. They were simply superb, always there with a smile and a kind word. Every day was filled with lovely little rituals. Mornings would start with a fabulous breakfast buffet, offering everything from fluffy omelets to fresh fruit and Egyptian specialities like foul madams. Then, after our adventures on shore, we would return for a delicious lunch. In the evenings, the ship came alive in a different way. We would gather in the lounge for a cocktail before dinner, listening to a lecture from our Egyptologist or enjoying some local entertainment. One night, we had a Galabea party, where we all dressed up in traditional Egyptian garments. It was such fun, everyone laughing and dancing together. The food was just heavenly. The chefs were true artists, creating dishes that were both beautiful and incredibly tasty. We had the chance to try so many wonderful Egyptian foods. There was delicious grilled kofta, flavorful tagines cooked in clay pots, and fresh salads bursting with flavor. My personal favorite was the freshly baked bread that appeared at every meal. The staff took such pride in explaining each dish, sharing the stories behind the recipes. It was more than just eating. It was a cultural experience in itself, a journey for the taste buds that mirrored our journey down the river. But the best part of life on board was the people. The crew were so genuinely friendly, remembering your name and your favorite drink from the very first day. They made you feel like you were part of a family. The other passengers were a wonderful mix of people from all over the world, all brought together by a shared love of travel and history. In the evenings, we would sit and chat for hours, sharing stories of our lives and our travels. There was no pretension, just a warm and easy camaraderie. It was this friendly, relaxed atmosphere that truly made the Viking Raw feel like a home away from home. Each day of our journey felt like we were turning a new page in a grand, ancient book. The Nile was our guide, leading us from one incredible chapter to the next. One morning, we docked at a quiet spot on the riverbank and took a small boat to visit the Temple of Edfu. It is one of the best preserved temples in all of Egypt, dedicated to the falcon god Horus. As you walk through its massive pylon gateway, you feel so small, completely humbled by the scale and the power of the place. The walls are covered in the most incredible hieroglyphs, telling the story of the great battle between Horus and his uncle, Set. Ahmed, our brilliant guide, made these stories leap off the stone walls. He would act out the parts, his voice full of drama and excitement, and we would all be completely captivated. He pointed out the details you might otherwise miss, the cartouches with the pharaoh's names, the intricate scenes of daily offerings, and the battle scars on the walls from later periods. You could almost hear the clash of swords and the triumphant cries of Horus. It was history made real, not just something you read about in a book. Standing there, you felt a real connection to the people who had walked those same halls thousands of years ago. The journey between the temples was just as magical as the destinations themselves. I would spend hours on my balcony just watching the scenery unfold. The landscape was a constantly changing tapestry of greens and golds. We passed lush fields of sugarcane, where farmers waved as we sailed by. We saw fishermen casting their nets from small wooden boats, their movements graceful and practiced. Little villages dotted the riverbanks, their mud brick houses painted in bright, cheerful colors. Life along the Nile seemed to move at a slower, more deliberate pace, a rhythm dictated by the river and the sun. In the afternoons, the light would soften, casting long shadows across the water. The river would become a mirror, reflecting the sky and the swaying palm trees along its edge. Sometimes we would pass a herd of water buffalo cooling themselves in the shallows, their dark shapes stark against the shimmering water. It was all so peaceful and mesmerizing. It was in these quiet moments, just sailing along, that the true beauty of Egypt seemed to sink in. It wasn't just about the grand temples and the tombs. It was about this timeless, enduring connection between the people, the land, and the great river that gives it life. One simply cannot visit Egypt without diving into the glorious chaos of a local market, or souk. Our trip to the market in Aswan was, honestly, an adventure for all the senses. The moment you step into its narrow, winding alleyways, you are hit by a wave of colors, sounds, and smells. Spices were piled high in vibrant pyramids, turmeric yellow, cumin brown, and paprika red. The air was fragrant with the scent of incense, perfumes, and freshly baked bread. Merchants called out to us, their voices a cheerful chorus, inviting us to look at their wares. "Welcome, welcome, looking is free," they would say with a grin. I must admit, I do love a bit of a haggle. It's all part of the fun, a friendly game between buyer and seller. I had my eye on a rather lovely string of blue beads. The first price the merchant gave me was, of course, outrageously high. I feigned shock, he laughed, and the negotiations began. We went back and forth sipping the sweet mint tea he offered, until we finally settled on a price that left us both smiling. It's not about getting the cheapest price, you see. It's about the connection, the little moment of human interaction. I left with my beads and a wonderful story to tell. It wasn't just about shopping, though. The market was a window into everyday life. We saw women in beautiful, brightly colored dresses buying vegetables for their family's dinner. We saw men gathered in small cafes, smoking shisha pipes and playing backgammon, their conversation a low, contented hum. Children darted through the crowds, their laughter echoing through the alleyways. It was a vibrant, living place, full of energy and warmth. You felt the pulse of the city here, a world away from the quiet serenity of the ancient temples. It was a wonderful contrast, a reminder that Egypt is as much about the present as it is about the past. Returning to the ship after the buzz of the market was like stepping back into a calm oasis. We all gathered on the sun deck, excitedly showing off our treasures: scarves, spices, little carved statues, and my lovely blue beads. We swapped stories of our bartering triumphs and funny encounters. One gentleman had accidentally bought a dozen tea towels when he only wanted one, much to everyone's amusement. It was these shared experiences, these little moments of laughter and discovery, that were weaving us all together into a happy little band of travelers. The market had been an exhilarating, slightly mad, and utterly brilliant experience. There are some places in the world that hold such power and mystery that they simply take your breath away. The Valley of the Kings is one of them. The landscape itself is stark and dramatic, a sun-baked valley of rock and sand under a piercing blue sky. It feels like a place hidden from the world, which of course was exactly the point. This was the final resting place of the great pharaohs of the New Kingdom. Their tombs burrowed deep into the limestone cliffs to protect their bodies and their treasures for eternity. Walking into the valley, you can't help but feel a sense of reverence and awe. We had the chance to descend into several of the tombs, including the famous tomb of Tutankhamun. Walking down the narrow corridors, you feel like a true explorer, like Howard Carter himself. And then, you step into the burial chambers, and it is just astonishing. The walls are covered from floor to ceiling in the most vibrant and detailed paintings. The colors, the blues, the reds, the golds, are so vivid, it's hard to believe they were painted thousands of years ago. The images tell the story of the pharaoh's journey into the afterlife, with gods and goddesses guiding the way. It is a silent, sacred, and profoundly moving experience. Later, we visited the nearby Valley of the Queens and the magnificent mortuary temple of Hatshepsut. What a woman she must have been. A pharaoh in her own right, she ruled for over 2 decades. Her temple is a masterpiece of architecture, rising up from the desert floor in a series of grand terraces that blend perfectly into the cliffs behind it. It feels so modern and elegant. Standing there, you get a real sense of her power and ambition. Ahmed told us her story, a fascinating tale of a woman who defied tradition to become one of Egypt's most successful rulers. It was truly inspiring. That evening on the ship, there was a quiet, contemplative mood. We had spent the day in the presence of kings and queens, glimpsing their hopes for eternity. It was a lot to take in. We talked about how the ancient Egyptians viewed death not as an end, but as the beginning of a new journey. It was a powerful concept. Looking out at the dark ribbon of the Nile, flowing eternally through the land, you could almost understand their beliefs. The day had been a profound reminder of the incredible legacy these ancient rulers left behind. A legacy of art, belief, and sheer human ingenuity that continues to captivate us today. If Dendera was grand and Edfu was dramatic, then the temple complex at Karnak was simply on another planet. It is not just one temple. It is a vast, sprawling city of sanctuaries, pylons, and obelisks built over 2,000 years. It is the largest religious building ever constructed, and honestly, darlings, you feel it. As you walk down the Avenue of the Sphinxes, with its ram-headed statues standing guard, you feel a sense of mounting anticipation. You pass through the first massive pylon and the scale of the place just opens up before you. It is utterly overwhelming in the best possible way. The heart of Karnak is the great hypostyle hall. I don't think I will ever forget the feeling of walking into it for the first time. There are 134 massive columns, arranged in a dense forest of stone. They are so tall and so thick that you feel like a tiny insect wandering among them. The tops of the columns are carved to look like open papyrus flowers, and even after all these centuries, you can still see traces of the original paint. When the sun streams through the gaps high above, it creates these dramatic shafts of light, illuminating the ancient hieroglyphs. It is a truly spiritual place. You can almost hear the whispers of the priests and the echoes of ancient ceremonies. We spent hours exploring Karnak, and still, we only saw a fraction of it. Ahmed led us to the sacred lake, a place of serene beauty where the priests would purify themselves. He showed us a giant scarab beetle statue and told us the local legend that if you walk around it 7 times, it will bring you good luck. Of course, we all had to give it a try. It was a fun, lighthearted moment in the midst of all the monumental history. We saw Queen Hatshepsut's towering obelisk, a single piece of pink granite reaching for the sky, a testament to her incredible ambition and engineering prowess. As we left Karnak, the sun was beginning to set, bathing the entire complex in a warm, golden light. The stone seemed to glow from within. That evening, we returned for a sound and light show. Sitting in the darkness, watching the temples and columns being illuminated in different colors as voices told their stories, was a magical experience. It brought the history of the place to life in a whole new way. Karnak is not just a collection of ruins, it is a place of immense power and enduring spirit. It is a place that stays with you long after you have left. Towards the southern end of our journey, the character of the Nile began to change. The river grew wider, dotted with granite islands and smooth, rounded boulders that looked like sleeping hippos. The landscape felt wilder, more ancient. This was the beginning of Nubia, a land with its own rich history and vibrant culture. One afternoon, we took a motorboat to visit a Nubian village nestled on the banks of the river near Aswan. It was like stepping into a rainbow. The houses were painted in the most brilliant shades of blue, pink, and yellow, decorated with charming patterns and drawings. We were welcomed into a local home with such genuine warmth and hospitality. The family offered us sweet tea and told us about their lives. The house was built around a central courtyard, open to the sky. Chickens pecked around our feet, and a friendly baby goat nuzzled against my leg. It was so different from the monumental grandeur of the temples, yet just as fascinating. It was a glimpse into the living, breathing culture of the Nile. The Nubian people have their own language and traditions, and they were so proud to share them with us. It was a truly heartwarming experience. After our visit, we sailed on a traditional felucca around Kitchener's Island, which is now a beautiful botanical garden. There is nothing quite like sailing on a felucca. There is no engine, just the sound of the wind in the sail and the gentle lapping of water against the hull. Our Nubian captain, a young man with a beaming smile, expertly navigated the currents. He sang traditional songs as we glided silently past the lush gardens, his voice carrying sweetly across the water. It was an incredibly peaceful and meditative experience, a moment of pure bliss on the river. That evening, the ship hosted a Nubian music and dance performance. A group of local musicians came aboard, bringing their drums and instruments. The rhythms were infectious, and soon, many of us were up on our feet, clapping and trying to follow the dancers' steps. There was so much joy and energy in the room. It was a wonderful celebration of a culture that is so deeply connected to the river. The encounter with Nubia added another rich layer to our Egyptian adventure, reminding us that the story of the Nile is told not just in stone, but in the colors, the music, and the smiles of its people. All too soon, our 12-day journey came to an end. Our last morning was spent in Cairo, a city of incredible energy and contrasts, where we finally saw the Great Pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx. Standing before them was a moment I had dreamed of my entire life. They are everything you imagine and more, a true wonder of the world. But as magnificent as they were, my heart was still with the river. The most memorable part of the trip for me was not a single monument, but the journey itself. It was the gentle, continuous flow of life on and along the Nile. What I will remember most is the feeling of peace that came from simply sailing. Waking up in the morning, opening my balcony doors and seeing the soft mist rising from the water. Watching the sunset in a blaze of orange and pink, turning the river into liquid gold. The timeless scenes on the riverbanks, the farmers, the fishermen, the children waving. These quiet, beautiful moments were the true soul of the journey. The Viking cruise allowed us to experience this in such comfort and style, creating a perfect, stress-free bubble from which to watch the magic of Egypt unfold. If a dear friend were to ask me if they should go, I would say, "Darling, you absolutely must." It is more than just a holiday. It is an education and an inspiration. You will learn so much about this cradle of civilization, not from dusty books, but from passionate guides who make the stories come alive. You will meet the most wonderful people, both on the ship and on the shore. You will eat delicious food and see things that will stay with you forever. It is a journey that nourishes the mind and the soul. It is an adventure in the truest sense of the word. So, yes, I would recommend it without a moment's hesitation. Go. Let the Viking Raw carry you down that legendary river. Let yourself be amazed by the temples, charmed by the markets, and moved by the kindness of the people. Sit on the sun deck and just watch the world drift by. You will come back changed, with a heart full of memories and a new appreciation for the enduring power of history and the simple beauty of a river flowing through the desert. It is, quite simply, the trip of a lifetime, and I, for one, am already dreaming of my return.